I'm sorry, I know you're waiting for someone else. The words hung in the warm restaurant air as Marin Bishop stood by the table, her worn apron still tied around her waist, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She hadn't meant to sit down. She'd only wanted to rest her aching feet for one stolen moment during her double shift. Across from her, Garrett Hayes, 33, impeccably dressed, and visibly annoyed, looked up from his watch. His jaw tightened. "You're right, I am." It was supposed to be simple. His assistant had arranged everything. A blind date with someone perfect for him. A successful lawyer, polished, ambitious, someone who fit. But she was already 40 minutes late, and Garrett's patience had worn thin years ago. Marin started to rise, but something in his eyes stopped her. Not anger, exhaustion. "She's not coming, is she?" Marin asked softly. Garrett exhaled, loosening his tie. "Apparently not." There was a pause. Marin glanced toward the kitchen where her manager was glaring. She should go. But instead, she asked, Do you want some company? Just until your date arrives?" He should have said no, but the restaurant was full of laughter and conversation, and his table felt like an island of silence. So he nodded. Marin sat down. At 26, Marin had learned to carry weight quietly. She worked 2 jobs, waitress by night, florist by day, to care for her younger brother, Owen, who was in his final year of college. Their parents had passed in a car accident 5 years ago, and Marin had given up her own dreams to make sure Owen wouldn't have to. She didn't tell Garrett all of this, not at first. But as they talked, the words came easier. She told him about the regular customer who always left a $5 tip no matter what. About the old woman who ordered soup every Tuesday and talked about her late husband. About the small, tender moments that kept her going. Garrett listened, really listened, and somewhere between her stories and his silence, something shifted. "You see people." "I've forgotten how to do that." Marin tilted her head. "What do you mean?" He leaned back, his expression distant. "I run an investment firm. I make decisions that affect hundreds of people, but I don't see them. I see numbers, outcomes. I've built everything I have, and it feels empty." Marin reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of his. "Maybe you're just looking in the wrong places." Garrett's phone buzzed, a text from his date. "Sorry, can't make it. Met someone else." He stared at the screen, then set the phone down. "Well, that's that." Marin bit her lip. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." He looked at her, something softer in his gaze. This was better. Before she could respond, her manager appeared, snapping his fingers. "Bishop, back to work, now!" Marin stood quickly, apologizing, but Garrett reached into his wallet and placed a $100 bill on the table. For her time. She's on break. The manager pocketed the money and walked away. Garrett turned to Marin. "When does your shift end?" "Midnight." "I'll wait." He did, and when Marin finally clocked out, exhausted and surprised, Garrett was still there, reading a book in the corner booth. They walked through the quiet city streets, talking about everything and nothing. She learned he'd grown up poor, worked 3 jobs through college, and built his company from nothing. He'd sacrificed relationships, friendships, joy, all for success. And now, at 33, he had everything except a reason to enjoy it. "I've forgotten what it's like," he admitted, "to just talk to someone, without an agenda." Marin smiled. "That's the best kind of talking." Over the next 3 months, they kept meeting. Coffee before her shifts, walks after his long meetings. Garrett began visiting the flower shop where she worked, buying bouquets he didn't need. Maren started to believe that maybe, just maybe, life could surprise her. But then came the twist. One evening, Garrett arrived at her apartment, his face pale. "I need to tell you something." Maren's heart sank. "What is it?" "The company I'm acquiring, I didn't realize until today, it's the one that owns your flower shop and the building you live in." He looked at her, anguished. "If the deal goes through, they're demolishing it. Redevelopment." Maren felt the air leave her lungs. "When?" "In 60 days. She sat down slowly, her hands trembling. "I can't. Owen's tuition, the rent, I'll stop it," Garrett said quickly. "I'll find another deal. No." Maren's voice was steady, though tears filled her eyes. "You've worked for this. You can't throw it away. Not for me. Maren, please." She looked at him. "I'll figure it out. I always do." But Garrett saw it in her eyes. The same exhaustion he'd carried for years. He didn't sleep that night, and the next morning, he made a choice. He called his board, restructured the deal, sold a portion of his company to fund a community trust, one that would preserve the building, subsidize rent for tenants, and keep the flower shop open under a nonprofit model. It cost him millions. His partners were furious. But for the first time in years, Garrett felt something other than emptiness. When he told Maren, she cried. Not because he'd saved her, but because he'd seen her. Truly seen her. "Why?" she whispered. He took her hand. "Because you taught me something I'd forgotten. Kindness isn't weakness. Connection isn't a distraction. It's the whole point." He smiled, his eyes bright. 1 year later, they sat at the same restaurant table. Maren no longer worked there. She'd opened a small nonprofit with Garrett's help, teaching Ikebana to underserved communities. Garrett had stepped back from his firm, focusing on impact investing. The waiter brought their food, and Maren laughed. "Do you ever think about that night when I sat down by mistake?" Garrett reached for her hand. "I don't think it was a mistake." She squeezed back. "Neither do I." And in that moment, surrounded by the soft glow of the restaurant and the gentle hum of life, they both understood. Sometimes the greatest gifts come from the smallest acts of courage. Kindness always finds its way home. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, subscribe, and comment.